right? So we have Tiffanie Stanard, right,
Yes.
from Stimulus. So Stimulus, tell us about Stimulus.
Yes. So Stimulus is a relationship intelligence SaaS platform that uses data analytics, relationship building tools, and a proprietary score to really help companies make better purchasing decisions,
Mm,
diversify their supply chain, as well as optimize their supply chain, right? Really
okay.
understanding who's in their supply chain, who should be in their supply chain, and making sure that they can quickly match them to different contract opportunities, really being vendor friendly versus just buyer friendly.
Interesting, interesting. So I'm curious, how did you kind of come about to create this company and come up with this idea to bring all of this together?
Yes, so I've been in procurement and vendor management now maybe 17 years. It's been a long
Oh,
time.
okay.
So I started in corporate America, first medium-sized companies and then corporate America, and really helping them understand their vendors and work with their vendors and of course diversify their vendors because
Right.
at that time I had my first business part-time. So I was working and hanging out with a lot of startups and small businesses that looked like me.
Yeah.
And they kept asking, how do I get into these supply chains? What does their budgets look like?
Yeah,
Give
yeah.
me their contact information.
Yeah.
'Cause even still to this day, you can't really Google who's the buyer in certain companies, like unless you meet them at an
Yeah, yeah.
event.
You got to do some like heavy stalking on LinkedIn, I would say, is the
Exactly.
way to go. Yeah, yeah.
Like who
That's a
should I be
tip for you
talking
there.
to? Right. A lot of stalking and looking for those titles.
Yeah.
And this was before LinkedIn was even like the most
Oh,
popular
yeah.
place to find titles,
Yeah.
right? So still to this day, it's hard to find the right person that you're looking for to really sell your product or service to. So throughout the years, I spent so many, years working and consulting across the fields,
Okay.
different industries, different size companies. I worked on the buyer side to connect them to vendors. I worked on the vendor side to connect them to buyers. So I've been on so many different platforms, so many different portals that never really helped me as a
Yeah.
buyer or helped me as a
Just
vendor.
more of a pain, right?
More of a pain, just a lot of just technical information, but it didn't really track the relationship. It didn't track how many times I emailed them, how many times I met them at an event like home delivery, and then
Yeah.
it didn't track it also for the vendor themselves. So once I became full time as an entrepreneur, I was like, I need to build an actual platform that I'm excited to be on as a buyer because now I'm a business owner and I'm looking at startups and businesses on a regular basis. But then as a vendor, how do I streamline this process so I can get into a supply chain myself now? So really wanted to digitize and be more than just the portals I was seeing out there that tracks the relationship in a transactional way, but not in a real relationship building way that people are trying to do through email now.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of streamline that and bring everything together into one. So, I mean, if a company is listening and watching and, they're having issues on the purchasing side and they're seeing, some of these gaps that you're referring to, I mean, what would be the advice you would give them besides get stimulus?
Right.
What advice would you give them? Yeah.
Besides the plug, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides using our platform, it's first do an audit of your suppliers, of your supply chain, understanding who's on your balance sheet and why they're still on your balance sheet. We do audits with our customers to have them look at how long you've been paying a certain company. And a lot of times they're paying companies because of the pain of switching to another company, but not because they actually still want to continue with that company.
Yeah.
And they don't look at how many times great companies have reached out to them over the years and they've just been stuck in their portal
Yeah.
or stuck in their email or stuck in an Excel sheet. And so I would say first do an audit so you can understand where you can save time, where you can save money, and where you can innovate in. And then looking at the diversity of your suppliers, not even diversity as far as their ownership, but diversity where you're buying something 100 miles away that can be purchased 5 miles away, 1 mile away, right? Like those different partnerships and expanding on how you purchase. I always say people buy personally, they buy the way they buy professionally, the way they buy professionally, they buy personally. And sometimes that's good and bad depending on how you're
Yeah.
buying,
Yeah. What's
right?
your buying habits?
Right,
Yeah.
looking at your buying habits. And it's so important to look at your buying habits and understand the importance of local spend, diverse spend, and just understanding why someone's in your supply chain.
Interesting advice there. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, and so now let's translate this over to because we're at the new warehouse, right? We talk about warehousing and stuff like that. So we have a lot of people. We had a guest actually earlier who was she works with a boutique kind of 3PL company, right? So tell us a little bit about from that perspective of a small to medium sized business, a warehousing operation, third party logistics company that's kind of figuring out how to their different vendors, ordering supplies and things like that. How does stimulus kind of help them to navigate that a little more easier?
Yeah, so we would help them by allowing for them to do a Google-like search on the platform, but be able to filter out that information. So you're
Yeah.
looking at location. What locations are they headquartered in? What locations are they servicing?
Okay.
So understanding that information first, and then looking at the different categories that they're in, because sometimes we pigeonhole suppliers to think that they can only do one thing, but they can
Yeah.
do multiple things. But because we've only purchased that one thing for them, we kind of categorize them like we can only get that.
Yeah.
So be able to really look at the other products and services that they have, but then also look at their partnerships and the other products and services that they have. So you can work with a team that actually works well together, right?
Yeah.
So you're not buying something that's in a whole other country where you can buy those two things here locally. And then looking at that and then being able to save that information on the stimulus platform. The goal for us is not to have you do a lot of duplicate work, right? A lot of
Okay.
time, like, okay, I'm looking for this list again. I'm
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for these companies again.
Yeah.
Like, be able to create those lists on the platform, see where they are within your ecosystem. How many people have looked at their profile? How many people have shared their profile? How many people have favored their profile? And then who's actually made a purchase from them?
Yeah.
Like, we streamline all of that information that gets lost in our minds trying to remember it that
Right.
we never actually remember.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too that kind of pops in my head there is just some situations I've had in my career where you have a purchasing turns over and somebody new comes in and then they're trying to pick up the pieces and everything is like
Because it's not been
saved on
documented.
this shared drive or saved on their computer and you're trying to figure out which is the right version and all these things. So tell us a little bit about how that kind of helps take that problem like out of the equation.
Yes, because all of that information is tracked of that relationship with that supplier. So all of the information about that supplier is housed on their profile. So any notes that you put on them, instead of putting it in your notes section on your email
Yeah.
or your computer, you can put that note section on their profile, and it can be
Okay.
you and other
Yeah.
stakeholders. And then any other projects that you have with them, if you awarded them, if they're currently in the project, if you consider them, if you have put them on certain lists, all of that is housed on their profile. So you know the type of relationship that you or other stakeholders have had. And then them as a company can track that because, like you said, if someone leaves the company, all these different layoffs that are happening right now,
Right.
10% of your layoff, of your workforce being laid off, that affects your small businesses, that affects your startups and your supply chain. Because one, they don't have those champions anymore that they may have been working with for years. So they got to start that relationship over. And when you're laying off your employees, you're now depending on your suppliers even more. So being able to track all of that in one place is what you're able to do with Stimulus.
Interesting. And I think that's like a huge pain point, and I've gone through that in my career, and it sucks to be honest. So I mean, it's great to be able to have a tool that now everybody can kind of be on the same page, whether somebody leaves or something happens, reorganization, whatever the case may be. And now tell us a little bit about I mean, from the stimulus perspective, you mentioned in there that you're utilizing data analytics, right? So we talked kind of about the vendor relationship, finding better vendors, seeing if this vendor makes sense, and keeping track of what you've been doing in your programs. But tell us a little bit about the data analytics side and how that can kind of help to us improve our operations or improve our purchasing processes.
Yeah, so from there, the first thing you do is source, right? So we allow for you to source within your own supply chain first, maybe companies that's been in your supply chain for years that either you used once or never used before. But then quickly, like I said earlier, you want to audit, you want to say, hey, I've been paying the same company for 5 years,
Right.
but there's an opportunity to find something smaller or something that will save me more time and money. So then you're able to look at the supply chain of stimulus that was created not only from our partnerships, but from other buyers on the platform. That's how our ecosystem grows.
Yeah.
Because we're growing our supply chain through all of the businesses that are added. Because we have to remember that all businesses are buyers and suppliers.
Right.
We're all buying something, we're all selling
Yeah.
something. So that ecosystem comes and grows very quickly. So you can compare and contrast from there. And then from there, you can actually create those projects on the platform, whether it's a one-time purchase you're doing or it's a ongoing purchase, maybe you're something buying on a regular basis. And then you're able to match and look at those lists and match those suppliers to those projects real time and track that, project from start to end, or a continuation if it's something that you continuously buy. But then other stakeholders throughout the entire organization can see that entire process in one place based upon their access on the platform. So it really is looking at sourcing to matching real time who's buying this now or in your next budget, which is normally where that kind of ball gets dropped, where you create these lists, you source, and then it kind of gets put to the wayside until you remember that you're about to buy this tomorrow or 6 months from now or a year from now. And then it becomes a problem also for the vendor themselves, where I'm contacting you not knowing if this is what you're actually about to buy right now.
Very interesting stuff, and I think it's a great tool, definitely, and it's certainly kind of filling a lot of those gaps in the purchasing process that we've discussed here, and certainly something that I've seen in my career too. And it sounds like certainly a lot that you probably see in your career too, right? Yeah, which is why you're solving this issue. So, so it's really great to have you come by the booth and talk to us about stimulus. Tiffanie Stanard, sounds like you're kind of setting the standard for purchasing. You could say, right? You like that? There you go. Keep that. So thank you so much for coming by. And if people want to learn more about stimulus, how can they do that?
Yes, you can go to our website at getstimulus.io. So it's www.getstimulus.io. And then also follow us on social media at GetStimulus.
All right, Tiffanie, thank you so much for coming by. It was great to meet you. Have a good one.